All right, welcome to the All Clemson Tigers Baseball Show, which is part of the Clemson Maven multimedia platform covering all things Clemson sports. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. You can leave a comment as well, and we will try and get back to you as soon as we can. And I'm Will Vandervort, by the way, and that's Jason Priester, the other guy you see on your screen here. We appreciate you joining us. I guess, Jason's kind of a somber show, if you will, for us. I don't think either one of us thought this week the season would be over. I know I didn't. Just your thoughts on Clemson's regional and being here, me and you talking about the end of the season as opposed to maybe a super regional.
Yeah, I absolutely didn't expect the season to end this weekend. I thought Clemson was going to get out of that region. I thought they got a pretty good draw, but just a disappointing end to what I think will be remembered as a great season. There's no way to get around it being a disappointing finish. I thought Eric Backus put it remarkably well the other night when he said felt like they were going 100 miles an hour and just slammed on the brakes, and that's kind of what it felt like. Just kind of ended with a thud. That just nothing left after that 14-inning marathon Saturday night, and I was not all that surprised.
Yeah, baseball season's a little different to me than like the other seasons. I don't know why it is. It just always feels different when it comes to an end generally when it's in postseason play. So I understand, in basketball you got the NCAA tournament and things can end just like right there in that one game after you lose. But I think because you go into it knowing that there's a 50-50 chance the season's over, it kind of just doesn't hit you the same, in my opinion, when you're in a double elimination tournament and you're like thinking, okay, well, if they can win this, I don't know. For some reason, it feels different to me. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, in a way, yeah. It didn't really hit me that the season was over. It didn't really start to hit me until, I don't know, maybe even a little bit after that game ended that, hey, this is it. We're not going to be back here the rest of this year. It was just a kind of solemn feeling there. But, yeah, I think baseball is a little bit different, especially once you get into the postseason.
Yeah, and maybe it had to do with the fact they lost to Charlotte. I think a lot of us thought they'd at least get to play Tennessee a second time. And, maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. It just seems weird. Like in football, the college football playoff, you go there knowing there's a 50% chance the season's going to be over after that. And baseball, I don't know. It just seems different and weird because I think Coach Backett did describe it the way I felt was like all of a sudden we're just like, and you're done. Get out of the car, right? And so it was definitely a strange feeling the other day when everything got done. But let's go ahead and start this thing off with talking about the Tennessee game. Okay. And listen, I've covered Clemson baseball since 2004. And I've been to the majority of the home games. Some years more games than others. But I've been to the majority of the games. And I've been to every big game at that stadium. All right. So I'm going to go from my own experience. I have never seen anything like that. Now, think about that. I've been there since 2004. So I saw Clemson wrap up 2 super regionals in that span. I've seen them beat the Gamecocks in big games in that span. I've seen them win big games in the ACC series against Florida State and Louisville or North Carolina during that span. I've never seen anything like that the other day. That atmosphere and how everybody for 14 innings was in their seats. Nobody left the building at all for 14 innings. That was over almost 5 hours of baseball. And there was 6,297 people still in their seats. It was amazing. The atmosphere was electric. I know Backett said in the postgame press conference that Coach Leggett told him that he had never experienced anything like that at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. Because, yes, the crowds have been that big. Absolutely, but the way the crowd participated, the atmosphere, it just was electric. I thought one of the best scenes I've seen for a Clemson sporting event, and I'm putting it in there with Death Valley.
It was emotionally charged. It was the best baseball game I've ever attended live in person. It just the wave of emotions that went with that game. But that crowd, I've never seen anything like it at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. I've been to regionals there before. I was there during the game where Kyle Wright started, and it was such a pitcher's duel, and everybody was into every pitch. But it was not like it was against Tennessee the other night. It was so emotionally charged, and Tennessee brought a pretty good crowd, and I think that kind of helped fuel that atmosphere in there.
It no doubt did. One of my favorite moments at Clemson was Tyler Colvin's home run in Game 1 of the 2006 Super Regional, and how Clemson came back. I think that he was down to his last strike, and he hits that grand slam walk-off home run, and the Tigers win that game. It was an amazing day that day because of the celebration and everything that went into it. And that's what that felt like, but 10 times better. And Clemson lost, and I agree with you. It was the best baseball game I've seen in person, college baseball game I've seen in person, period, hands down. And, I will rank it with sporting events that I've seen at Clemson. I will rank it up there with that Louisville game, Clemson-Louisville football game a few years ago in 2016. I would rank it up there because of what the atmosphere was. I was at the very first night game in Death Valley in 1992 when Florida State came to town. That was an electric atmosphere and great game, and I won't forget that. The Miami game in 2005, another electric. I put it with those atmospheres. That's what it reminded me of. Yes, small scale version, but I got to give Clemson fans credit, man. They were awesome. That's the best Clemson crowd I have seen. And if they can do that from here on out, this Clemson baseball program is going to be every bit as good as that football program across the moat, if you know what I mean. If they can bring that kind of energy for Clemson baseball and big games, Clemson's going to win most of those games and not come on the short end like they did the other day.
Hey, Clemson's got a fantastic baseball fan base. A lot of these fans been coming to these games a lot of years, but I think they've got the right guy leading the program at the right time. And I think a lot of these fans have started to realize that over the past few weeks, and it kind of culminated in what we saw Saturday night. And if they can continue to bring those kind of crowds, it should be fun.
Now, Jason, I got to ask, were you like me? Did you think as that game went on, that the team who won that game was going to win the regional and that the team who lost probably wasn't going to play Sunday night?
Yes. We talked about it when we were leaving Saturday night. The further we got in that thing and the more innings we played, you could just tell, man, it was just so emotionally charged. It was those players were riding such a wave of emotions, especially in that Clemson dugout, to go from being one strike away from winning, then bases loaded, nobody out in the 10th, and it's just such a wave of emotions. I was spent. I could totally see how those players on that team were spent when they got there Sunday at noon. I was a little worried they'd come out flat against Charlotte, and that's what happened.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what happened. And of course, there was some reason for that too. I think part of it was I didn't have Cam Canarella. He was suspended for that game after being tossed in the 13th inning. Man, I'm going to tell you what. I know they're not watching this, but I wish they were. If you're an umpire in any sport or an official in any sport, an umpire in baseball, softball, you don't be the reason why things are determined. And yes, that call determined the outcome of that game the other day, I thought. Not only the Tennessee game, but also the Charlotte game. First of all, the Tennessee game. Why do you say that? Well, because Cam Canarella was coming to bat third at that 14th inning. And the way he was 4 for 5, a 3-run homer, and 2 doubles in that game against Tennessee. Tennessee could not stop him. He was the best player on the field that day. There's no doubt about it. He was, and he was a major factor in the game. And then all of a sudden he's gone, and the Tigers are going to that bottom of the 13th after he gets tossed for saying something that we can't repeat on here. But he didn't say it like he didn't get up in his other player's grill and say it to his face. There was no escalation of the situation. He was heading back to his dugout. The Tennessee players headed back to his dugout. By the way, he commented to the Tennessee player who flipped his bat and didn't get called or anything about the way he flipped his bat after the the go-ahead home run in the ninth. Right? It was ball. They were playing with emotions. You let it go in the ninth inning, but you didn't let it go in the 13th inning. I just have a problem with that, man. It affected the outcome of 2 games. And that's what I'm really kind of pissed off about because we kind of got robbed of that.
It was petty. Make no mistake, it was petty. That guy's known to do petty ejections. There was a lot of jawing going on in that game, a lot of jawing. And both teams were warned, early on in the game. There was a lot of jawing that went on after those warnings were handed out. Mm-hmm. And you choose to make an example of him at that time. If you're going to do that to him, you got to do it to the guy that did the bat flip. There was a lot of jawing coming out of that dugout directed at Blake Wright all night long. Nobody's ejected over there. So, it definitely leaves a sour taste in your mouth.
It is. And it's unfortunate because the official understood what the consequences would mean for that young man the next day. And I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's the guy in the dugout that says it and you eject him. You still are causing him not to be available to play in an elimination game the next day. You know what's at stake for these teams and these players in these moments. If it's not causing a problem where these guys are getting into each other's faces and they're about to benches are about to clear or whatever, dugouts, guys are going to run out of the dugout, then just turn a deaf ear to it. They're talking trash. They're being competitors. Because I guarantee you when that game was over, I bet you Canarello and Denton were fine with each other. It was just in the moment, they're being competitors. And competitors say things. I know I've done that. I've said things that I'm not proud of in church league basketball. I'll just go ahead and admit it. Because when you get out there and you're competing, it just happens. Things come out of your mouth that you don't necessarily mean at the moment. You're just saying it because you're in the moment. You're emotional and you say something. But you didn't say it like he didn't get up in his face. He didn't try to hit him. He didn't try to start a fight. And we know what the response was, and we can't say it. But he actually was responding because of what he said. It had to be he was responding to something. You know what I'm saying? So Denton obviously said something first, and he just responded to him. And, again, it's always the guy that responds and gets caught. We know that. But I don't blame – a lot of people say, well, Cam Canarello needs to hopefully he learned his lesson here. Learned his lesson what? To be competitive? I mean, this isn't on Cam. Now, what he said wasn't good, but that's not – what he said was no reason to be tossed from this game. None whatsoever.
No, I mean, I see that side of it too, Once those warnings are handed out, that umpire's out there with the quick trigger finger. You got to be smart about it too. So I see both sides of it, but it was definitely petty. Make no mistake, it was petty. And Tennessee got away with jawing, and Clemson didn't. That's just what it came down to because they have been enforcing this rule more heavily this year because of Tennessee last year.
Yeah,
and it's ironic that it comes in a game played against Tennessee where they're constantly jawing and nothing happens to their guys. And somebody on Clemson's side gets ejected.
Yeah, and not just somebody, but Clemson's best hitter. And by the way, so you can understand what I'm saying here, not only what he did in that game, but Canarello is a 388 hitter. Oh. He, we figured, me and Brad figured it the other day. We're sitting there. This guy scored over 70 runs this year. Okay, so let's put that in perspective. He scores over 70 runs. He had over 100-something at bats. We figured if you throw in the walks and stuff that they don't count, it probably goes up a little bit more, the percentage of when he gets on base. But we got to figure he at least scored. If you looked at it, over 100 at bats, it's like 104, 110 or something like that we counted. He's got 70 runs he scored. Well, right there is 70% of the time he scores when he gets on. Now, we know that's not accurate because it doesn't show hit by pitch or base on balls. But you got to figure he's over 60%.
Yeah.
Right, JP? So you took a guy who scores 60% of the time when he gets on base, and by the way, he gets on base pretty much 40% of the time, out of the game. And that was a big, big loss for Clemson.
And I make sure I'm not letting my games run together here, but isn't he the guy that hit the 3-run homer in that same game?
That is him.
Yeah.
That is him in that same game. He hit the 3-run home run that gave Clemson a 4-1 lead. They ended up scoring 4 runs in that inning. I believe that was the bottom of the 5th inning. The Tigers got 4 runs to take a 4-1 lead, had control of the game, and we're going to talk about the reason why they had control of the game here in a second. But yeah, that was the guy, and he didn't play the last inning. Didn't get to bat that last inning against Tennessee in the 13th, and then didn't get to bat in the bottom of the 14th. Well, he wouldn't have been in a situation to bat, I don't think, in the 14th, but definitely was coming up in the 13th. And we don't know what happens. He could hit a walk-off home run the way he was hitting the ball. We don't know.
He has been the engine that makes that lineup go at the top of the order. He's been a spark plug all season long. He gets on base. He makes things happen. That's just the way it is, and it was a crucial loss.
It was a huge loss. And was it? Didn't he miss the what series was it? Georgia Tech series.
Georgia Tech.
He got sick. He's sick and it didn't play, and they ended up losing that series. So I think the Tigers 1-3 in games, and he didn't play this year, and that's no coincidence. Before we talk about the season as a whole and all, and we wrap things up here, I got to talk about Caden Grice, right? I mean, that was one of the best pitching performances I've seen by a Clemson pitcher in a long, long time. Maybe the best in the last decade. One of the top 5 I've probably seen all time in games I've covered at Clemson. What do you think?
Oh, it was remarkable. He made himself so much money Saturday night. It's not even funny, and I'm sitting here laughing. He was outstanding. You know, he definitely saved his best for last, because that was by far, you know, his best pitching performance since he's been at Clemson. And he's had some good ones this year, some really good ones. And it's easy to say this in hindsight, because I didn't think it at the time either, but maybe you let him try to finish it up after giving up those back-to-back singles. You know, it's a shame the way it ended, because he definitely, if there was ever a tough luck loss or a tough luck no decision, man, that was one Saturday night. That was just a brutal way for it to end for him, if in fact it does end for him and he's not back next year, and I don't expect he will be. It's just tough luck, man, because he was dealing, just absolutely dealing.
He was, and for those who don't know, maybe didn't see it or whatever, Caden, now the line will say that he gave up 4 runs, but he went 8 2/3, allowed only 4 hits and 2 runs. There were 2 solo home runs Tennessee got, one in the 4th inning and one in the 7th. And he went into the 7th inning only giving up 2 hits before the 7th inning. And so he finishes, his final line was 8 2/3, 6 hits, 4 runs earned, 1 walk, 10 strikeouts. He faced 30 batters. Faced 33 batters, He had 2 guys. He gets 2 outs, no men on there in the bottom of the 9th, and you're thinking, okay, he's going to finish it. He gets 2 strikes on a guy, base hit to the right field. You're like, okay. Then he comes back again, gets 2 strikes on another guy, and it's a base hit up the middle. And then that's when Backage comes and says, okay, I got to bring in my closer, Ryan Ammons, to close the deal. I get it. Hindsight's 20/20. We know. I'm with you. I think maybe you let him go one more batter. And the reason I say that in that instance was because of the matchup that was there. It was a lefty-righty matchup at that time. And I don't know if Backage just thought, okay, he's tired. I got to get him out of there. And he went with his closer, Ryan Ammons. And Ryan Ammons has been solid all year. He's been the guy that's finished the job. I understand it. But I think he lost focus on the matchup. And there was a matchup there where I think he wins the matchup. And Clemson gets out of it, I think, right there. But hindsight's 20/20. They bring in Ammons, and he gives up the 3-run homer, Denton, as we know, and Tennessee takes the lead. Of course, you know that guy, Cam Canarella, comes back in the next inning and gets a 2-out, 2-strike double that allows the tying run to score. I believe Cooper Ingalls scored on that play. not Cooper Ringle. Who was that? Blake Wright, maybe? Maybe it was Blake Wright. I can't remember. I can't remember who was on second at the time. But since it's kept rolling,
right.
Yeah, I think it was Blake Wright. And so they end up tying the game, and it goes into extra innings. I understand the move, but I'm with you, man. It was just heartening to see that he didn't get to finish that game out and get the win. And man, I felt for Ryan Ammons. I felt his pain because he's a captain on the team, and you could just see right when he hit it, he was like, dang, I just let everybody down.
I was surprised they sent Grice back out for the ninth to start with.
Mm-hmm.
But once they did, all right, you got to let him finish this thing. 1 out, 2 outs, gives up the back-to-back singles. And even I said myself, maybe you got to come get him now. But again, like we both said in hindsight, maybe you shouldn't have. But you got Ryan Ammons there who has been, outside of one outing up in Blacksburg, has been awfully successful in that role this season. And you just need 1 out. And he comes in and he's immediately ahead 0-2. Guy fouls off 2 more pitches, and he finally times that fastball up, man. He just kills it. Another thing, hindsight, maybe you don't throw it in 5 straight fastballs.
Yeah, that's your problem.
If Hammond is throwing 96, 97, that's one thing, but he's 90, 91, and maybe you don't throw him 5 straight fastballs because he sure did time that thing up on that 5th one.
He did, and I'm with you. I thought maybe at some point, because you fouled him off twice after going ahead 0-2, you blew it past him. I think at that point you got to go change up or something off speed there, because I think he timed it up. When a guy starts fouling a ball off, he's obviously figured the pitcher out, and so now he's just, it's a matter of him just getting it totally right. And of course, also it helps also when you throw a meatball down the middle of the plate, because he left that one sitting right across the middle of the plate, and so that didn't help either. So I would love something off speed there, because he was timing that fastball and he was looking fastball. You come with an off speed pitch, and game's over.
Make him chase something.
Yeah, I agree. So but again, hindsight is what it is, and you felt the energy after that game, after Clemson lost. Again, you mentioned they had a chance to win it, no outs, bases loaded in the 10th, and you can't get a guy across the plate. I mean, and again, they hit into a double play. At the time, though, we thinking that Benjamin Blackwell, he outran the ball, and got to first base in time to allow the run to score from third, which has been Caden Grice, and it looks like Clemson won. But then
they're already out on the field celebrating.
Yeah.
So that kind of goes back to that range of emotions, that roller coaster emotional ride, or however you want to term it, that they took during that game. So it's just up and down, up and down, up and down. That 10th inning was a big part of that.
It was, and so you felt it at the end of the game when they ultimately lost the game. You could just feel on the Clemson side that they knew their path to Omaha was probably done. And then they didn't have their best hitter the next day. That's the guy who brings the energy. He sets the tone. And it was very obvious they missed him in that game. Nobody really could step up, because I think everybody was still emotionally drained from just playing less than 12 hours before that, basically. You imagine, right? We've been there in different parts of our life doing different things, but when you're disappointed and something happens in your life, it takes a while to get over it. So if you're like Clemson and you played this game of your life, all this emotion that we're talking about that was going on throughout the game, and then you lose, now you got to get ready in less than 12 hours to play another game. Your brain doesn't work that way. Your body doesn't work that way. I mean, JP, I'm sure those guys didn't get to bed till probably 3 or 4 in the morning.
That's what I was about to say. I'd be willing to bet most of those guys were working on 2, 3, maybe 4 hours of sleep I bet very few of them got much sleep at all the way that game played out. I know I wouldn't have. That's why I figured that. I mean, it would. I might not still be sleeping. It might sit with me for 3 or 4 days because it was just that. It was that intense. It was that emotionally charged. It was just. It's hard to describe, really. It's hard to put it into words, and it was a spectacle, roller coaster of emotions, and you could see it Sunday when they got to the park. They just didn't have it, and Canarella is kind of one of those guys that provides that energy, and he's not there because he's one of the most fiery guys on that team. That is a fiery guy. If you're not there, you might not see it come across on your television screen, but take our word for it. He is fiery. He is one of the more emotional guys in that dugout, I would say, and I think they missed that Sunday.
I think they did too. And by the way, I don't want to be remiss going a little bit back to the Tennessee game. Because Ryan Ammons came in the ninth, Clemson because they took Grice out, who was the pitcher and was hitting. Well, when they came in and replaced him with Ammons, they had to take Grice out of the game. Well, they moved Grice over to first base to keep him in. Well, they ended up having to take the DH out of the game. The pitcher came in for the DH, and that's why you saw Clemson using so many pitchers and that's why you didn't see Billy Amick. And you took out Clemson's probably their best power out of the lineup too in that game. And you wonder, I think 3 times after that, he would have been up to bat and he didn't get that bat. And how big was that in that game as well? And that, by the way, that's the 4th time they've done that this year where they've come in and taken Grice out and putting Ammons in. But Ammons finished the job the other 3 times and they didn't have to worry about the DH situation. Right, and that's what they're thinking. Hey, 1 out, we go get it done. And that's the first time it backfired on them.
It's 100% the right call. You want your best defensive first baseman on the field. You need 1 out. Mm-hmm. You want him there. To keep your DH, you would have had to send Grice to the dugout and bring him back out at the top of the inning. That's the way they've been doing it all year long. That's the way the rule is. It's dumb, but that's the rule. But with just 1 out, bottom of the 9th inning, 2-run lead, you're not counting on Amick to come to the plate again.
Exactly.
You're planning on going home. But, yeah, it backfired. It kind of goes back. It reminds me of that game very early in the season. I want to say it was the first time Grice pitched. And when they came and took him out, they did it the wrong way, and they lost the DH, and they had to pinch hit several times the rest of the way. And I know Eric Backus said they did that on purpose, that they had played out all the scenarios. Not sure I'm buying that, but it kind of reminded me of that because it was like in the 4th inning or something. Grice, 4th or 5th inning, Grice didn't go deep that day, and they took him out and they lost the DH and pinch hit 2 or 3 times the rest of the way. But yeah, this is a little bit different because you're not planning on Amick coming up to the plate again. But man, they sure could have used him.
Yeah, they really could. And all right, a lot of woulda, shoulda, couldas, right? And that as Backus says, that's just what losers say. And so I guess we get past that. But let's look at this season real fast before we get out of here, man. 44-19, ACC champions. They went on a run that only is matched by the 2016 in the last 28 years. And that's winning 17 straight games at one point in the season. They finished the second half of the season, I believe 28-6 was their record the second half of the season. They won 22 of their last 25 games. JP, this season, man, just kind of talk about it, what it's meant to you and how fun this team was to cover.
I told Eric Backus after the game Sunday, I thanked him for making it fun to come to the ballpark again. Because it's always fun to go to the ballpark, but it's been different, especially over the back half of this season. It has been absolutely enjoyable to cover this team. They have had so many things go right for them over the back half of the season. They got some lucky breaks. I mean, I think it was the Boston College series maybe where they won the game on the interference call. Just a lot of things going their way and led to that. Extended 16-game winning streak to close out the 17-game winning streak.
Yeah.
close out or before they finally lost. It's just a great season. It's it might feel like it's overshadowed a little bit by the disappointing ending. I know Clemson fans are frustrated that they're ready to get out of the regional. It's been a long time. I really think they've got the guy that's going to get them out, though. I don't think this pain is going to last much longer. I think he's going to get them over that hump, and I think he's going to get them over it sooner rather than later. I think what we've seen over the second half of this season is a microcosm of what's to come.
Mm-hmm. I look at it like this is 2011 football season. Won the ACC championship that year, had a lot of hype, a lot of good things, and then it ended on a thud, right? Just boom, right? And then you're like, oh, man. But you saw that the table had turned, and you saw that this program was going in a different direction. That's what this season reminded me of, this second half of the season, and what this team accomplished and what it means for the future of this program. I'm with you 100%. I think this is just the beginning. I think he's going to get them out of a regional eventually. Hey, it has to. At this point in time, when you've lost 10 straight regionals, at some point you got to win again.
And I don't believe in curses. I don't think there's no curse. I just think it is what it is.
It is what it is. It is. That's exactly right. At some point, they're going to get out of regional. I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. And I think this team is going to get back to Omaha. I love what he said in the post-game press conference after the game the other day after Charlotte lost. He says, they fell short of their goal. Our goal is Omaha. We did not make our goal. That's the standard at Clemson. And any team that doesn't make it to Omaha, they've missed their goal. I loved hearing that because that tells you what this team is going to do in the future. Omaha is the goal. There is no, well, this was great, but there's none of those exceptions. It was Omaha or bust. And when you're programmed and that's your goal, you're going to get back to Omaha sooner rather than later. And I believe it's going to happen here in the next few years. I was hoping it was this year because I want to get back to Omaha so bad. It's been a long time. And the Drover is calling me, JP. It's calling me, and I need – see, I'm throwing out my earbuds. I just need to get back there sometime. But Coach Bakich, I believe he's going to get us there.
I've never been to Omaha. I was very much looking forward to getting to go because I was really starting to believe it was going to happen. But, I think he's going to get them there. We've been around him a little bit now, and there's just so much to like about him as a coach. He's so detail-oriented. He's all about the little things, and he's so respectful of the traditions at Clemson and the past and the history and the former players. He's getting all those guys back involved again. There is a lot to like about the direction this program's headed in. And I'm with you. That stuck out to me when he said that about falling short of their goal the other night. Gives you a little peek into his mindset. And I think this program's, got big things on the horizon.
It does. And by the way, JP kind of wrote a end of the year kind of story on allclemsontigers.com. Go check that out as he kind of wrapped up the season. Kind of look ahead a little bit. We got to look ahead. We're going to do some more here probably in the next weeks or so, what this team is going to be looking like next year. You got to get through the draft and all that before you really can kind of set what things might look like next year. As Clemson's got a couple of prospects that they're worried about losing to the draft as every year. It must suck to be a head baseball coach in college because you never feel comfortable when it comes to the draft, right?
No. At least you got the portal there now. You can go grab somebody out of the portal if you need them. But, I would hate having to deal with that as a college baseball coach. You don't know who's coming. You don't know who is coming when it comes to those prospects, those major league prospects. And there are definitely a couple in this class that could end up choosing to go pro rather than coming to school.
And you could lose who on your roster. You got guys that are juniors and seniors that could be leaving that you think are coming back. Redshirt seniors that would be. So yeah, it's a crazy time. There's a lot going to happen. So it's still a lot more Clemson baseball news. So please follow allclemsontigers.com. Follow JP stuff. He does a great job covering that as well as recruiting. JP's been all over the football recruiting. He's been busy on that. He hadn't stopped. The rest of us got a break. JP didn't yet. So, and I know he probably wants me to shut up and stop talking so he can actually go have a little bit of a break for a little bit. So, JP, appreciate you, man. I know you've been busy.
Man, I very much have enjoyed covering this team with you this year. It's been very fun, man.
Yeah, it has, man. And hopefully next year we'll have just as much fun. So for Jason Priester, I'm Will Vandervort. We appreciate you joining us. And if you could, please check out all of our stuff at All Clemson Tigers on YouTube. Subscribe if you hadn't already, and please download or like as well. So again, for Jason, I'm Will. We'll talk to you next time on Clemson Baseball Show.